Hello everyone, my name is Ashish and welcome to the X-Admin channel. So in this session we are going to discuss 25 interview questions on the topic of inheritance. And in my last session we have discussed some of the important interview questions on the topic of encapsulation. So basically this session will be fully dedicated to the inheritance, and this session may be a little bit lengthier because in this session we are going to target the inheritance concept, and we are trying to discuss all the possible interview questions which you may face in the inheritance topic. So before starting the lecture, I will suggest you to watch the lecture till the end, and also subscribe my Xadmin channel so that you will be get a notification whenever a new lecture is uploaded, and also hit the like button in the end. So guys, let's start our session. So the next question which you may get in the core Java interview questions is about the inheritance topic. So this is the important and like most favorite topic for the interviewer if he has make up his mind to take to ask the question in the topic of inheritance. So first question he may ask that what is inheritance? So inheritance is the one of the pillar of the OPS concept. So basically it is a process of defining a new class from the existing class functionality. So what does this mean? This means that with the help of inheritance, we are going to create a new class which is taking the properties of the existing class. So let's say that we already have some class with the name father, and we want to create a child class, and in that we want that all the member variables and all the behaviors or all the method should come to our child class. Then for this we have to use the concept of inheritance, right? So it is a process of defining a new class from the existing class functionality. So in order to inherit the existing class, we need to use the extend keyword, right? So for that we have to use one keyword, that is extends. So inheritance is a process where a child class acquires all the properties and the behavior of a parent class. So inheritance is a process where a child class acquires, means takes all the properties, means all the member variables and a behavior means methods of a parent class. So one of the most best example of the inheritance is in the real world is father son relationship, right? Where the son inherited the father property, right? So this is the best example of the real world of the inheritance, where the son inherit all the property of the father, right? So here you can see one example that there is a class with the name father, and this is the super class, okay, or a base class, or a like a parent class. And there is an child class which is inheriting all the properties of the class father. So for that, here we have used extends and then class of the parent class name. So class child extends father, and this is the subclass. By this way it is taking all the properties of a father class to the child class. So this is the concept of inheritance, right? So now the next question which you may get after this, that why do we need the use of inheritance? So why the inheritance is useful, or why you are using inheritance? So you can reply this by using 4 point. First, it is useful for code reuse. So if we are using inheritance, then we can reuse the code from our parent or base class. As we have already discussed in the definition of inheritance, that it is a process of creating a new class by acquiring the properties of the parent class, right? So here you can say we can reuse the code. So we can reuse the code of the parent class inside our child class. So this is the first point, that why we need to use inheritance. So the second point you can give, it increase the features of a class or the method by overriding. So with the inheritance, we can override the method. So what do you mean by like method overriding? So method overriding, by the method overriding, we are defining a method with the new functionality. Let's say that we have some method in the class of father, right? And here in the child, we have the same method, but we want to provide the new implementation inside the child method. But the name of that method will be same as the name in the father class. So by this, so by the method overriding property, we can achieve this. So it increases the features actually. So increase the features of a class or a method by overriding. So the third point you can give is features reuse. So inheritance is used to use the existing feature of a class. That let's say that already there is some feature of a class. So with the inheritance, we can use that feature again in our child class. So that is the feature usability. So the fourth point you can say is polymorphism. So it is used to achieve runtime polymorphism by method overriding, right? So with the inheritance, that is with the overriding, and how we can achieve overriding with the help of inheritance. And with the method overriding, we are achieving the runtime polymorphism, right? So polymorphism topic we will discuss in the upcoming lectures. But for now, you just keep in mind that use by using the inheritance, we can achieve the runtime polymorphism. And how we can achieve the runtime polymorphism? By a method overriding. So these are the 4 points you can say to the interviewer when he asks you that what is the need of inheritance or what is the advantage of inheritance, right? So let's move to the next question, that now he will ask that what are the type of inheritance in Java. So basically there are four main types of Java, means type of inheritance in Java. First is a single inheritance, or it is also called a simple inheritance. Second is like a multiple, is like a multi-label inheritance, and the third is hierarchical inheritance, and the fourth is hybrid inheritance, right? So these are the four type of inheritance in Java. So let's look all this type one by one. So first is single inheritance. So single inheritance is also called as a simple inheritance. So in this, a subclass is inherited from only one superclass. It inherited the property or the member variable and the behavior, that is method, of a single parent class. Let's say that in the diagram you can see that we have a class A and it is a base class or a parent class, right? And class B is a derived class or a child class. If any class is inheriting the properties from a single class, it means that class B has only one superclass, that is class A. So this type of scenario is called as a single inheritance or a simple inheritance. So in simple inheritance, a subclass is inheriting the property from only one superclass. I hope you understand this point, that was a single inheritance. So now let's check one example that how we can achieve single inheritance. And in the inheritance, I have already told you that it is a process of creating a new class, that is class B, in which it will take all the properties of class A, right? So let's move to our Eclipse, and here I have created example for you, that here you can see that this is a parent class. So parent class has one variable of double type, it is a bank balance, and here it has something like 100 crore in the bank balance of a parent class. Now we have created one child class, here you can see, and we have extended this parent class. So we are using extend keyword, it means we are inheriting the property of a parent class, right? So here we have like given one like member variable with the name child balance class. So child has like bank balance as something like 50 crore, right? And here I have also like defined one like property. So the property of the child So the total property of the child will be like total bank balance will be the father bank balance, because here you can see the bank balance is coming from the parent class, right? Because here in this child class you can see I have not defined the bank balance, but still it is not giving me any compile time error, because this bank balance from the parent has came or inherited to this child class, because we are using extend keyword, and here we have written a parent as a superclass, right? So the property of this like bank balance has come to the child, so that's why we are able to use this bank balance here, and we are adding the child balance and the parent bank balance. So this is the total bank balance of the child, right? And now we are doing system dot print out total bank balance, and here we are using the main method, and we have created the object of a child class, and we are calling this property method with this object. Okay, and then we are showing the result. So this is the child bank balance and this is the parent bank balance. So here you can see that with the child object we are able to access the bank balance of the parent class, because the bank balance has inherited to the child class. And also with the child object, of course we will able to access this child balance, because this is the property of the same class. But here you have to keep in mind that we are able to access the bank balance property of the parent class also. So now let's run this program and let's check the output. So here in the console you can see the total bank balance is 150, right? And the child balance is 50 and the parent balance is 100. So it means that in the child class we have successfully inherit or acquires the property of a parent class. This is the bank balance, right? So this type of scenario is called a simple inheritance or a single inheritance, in which the child class will be inherited from a single superclass. So here you can see that this child is inherited from a single superclass, that is a parent class. So this is the example of a simple inheritance or a single inheritance, right? So now let's move to the second type, that is multi-level inheritance. So multi-level, as the name suggests, there will be a multi-label, right? So there will be like more like labels. So in multi-level inheritance, the class is inheritance from a class which is also inherited from another class is called as a multi-label. So in multi-level inheritance, a class is inheritance from a class which is also inheritance from another class. Means in the example you can see that there is a base class. So this derived class 1 is inheriting the property of a base class, and this derived class 2 is inheriting the property of a derived class 1. So for a derived class 1, this base class will be the parent class, and for derived class 2, the parent class will be derived class 1, right? So here it is forming a multi labels, so that's why it is called as a multi-label inheritance. So in simple word, you can say that a class that has more than one parent class is called as a multi-label inheritance. Note that the class must be in a different labels. So this class must be in a different labels. Hence, there exists a single base class and a single derived class, but multi-inheritance base classes. So here you have to keep in mind that there will be one base class for every child class, but there can be multiple intermediate base classes. So here you can see the derived class 2, the parent class will be derived class 1, and for derived class 1 base will be the parent class, right? So here it's forming a multi label. Now let's go to our example and let's see how we can do this in a program. So here you can see I have already created one example for you. So let me close this classes. Now let's open a multi label example. So first I will show you base class. So this is the base class in which I have created one class with the name base, and the base balance I have kept as a 5. Okay, so this is the base class, and this is the derived class 1, which is extending base class, right? So derived one parent class is base class, and it has also some like property with the value derived one value as a 10. Now let's go to the derived 2 class. So this derived 2 class is extending derived 1 class, right? It is not extending the base class, but it is extending derived 1 class. And here we have seen that derived 1 class is extending base class, right? And it has also with the property name derived 2 value. And this is our like main class in which we have the main method. And now I will create the object of this derived 2 class, and with this object I will try to access derive to value, derive value, and the base class. So actually in the derive to class we got all the properties from the derived one, and also we got the property from a base class, right? So if we want to acquire or inherit the multiple class like member variables or the property, then we can go for a multi-label inheritance type. So here in derive 2 you can see, so derive 2 will have the property of derive 1 also and the base class also, because derive 2 is inheriting the derive 1 and derive 1 is inheriting the base class, right? So in this way we can achieve with the object of derive 2. Now let's run and check the output of this. So here you can see the first value derive 2 value is 15, and the derive 1 value is 10, and the base class is 5, right? So in this way we are able to access all the member variables of these classes inside a derive 2, because derive 2 has all the values from the derive 1 and also the base. So this kind of uh, like scenario or the property is called as a multi-label, right? So in multi-label, a class is inheritance from a class which is also inheritance from the another class, right? So this is all example of a multi-label. I hope you understand this point. Now let's move to the third scenario. So it is a hierarchical inheritance. So if a number of classes are inherited from a single base class, it is called as a hierarchical. Let's say that we have a derived class 1, derived class 2, derived class 3. So these are the all three child classes. So all these three child classes are inherited from a single base class. So this type of scenario is called as a hierarchical inheritance. So here the definition says if a number of classes, this derive 1, derive 2, derive 3, are inheritance from a single base class, so this is called as hierarchical. It is in a hierarchical manner, right? Now let's move to our Eclipse and let's see the example. So let me close all these classes. Let's open the hierarchical. So here you can see this is my parent class which has a base value, and this derive 1 class is extending this parent class. It means that derive 1 will have its own value, derive 1 value, and also it will have the value of base value, right? Because it is extending parent class. Now in the derive 2 we can see it is extending parent class. So these derive 1 and derive 2 is extending this parent class. So this is the example of hierarchical, right? So this derive 2 will have the value of its own derive 2 value and also the base value, that is the parent class value. Now in this yeah, so this is the main method, and here you can see that I have created the object of 2 derive 1 class and derive 2 class also. And now I will like access derive 1 value, and also so with the object of derive 1 we will access the parent class value, and also with the derive 2 we are accessing the base value. So this is the example of the hierarchical inheritance type, right? So let's move to the third type, sorry, the fourth type, that is the hybrid inheritance. So hybrid means consist of more than one. So in this it is a combination of two or three like types. So hybrid inheritance is the combination of two or more type of inheritance. So here you can see that this base class, so this derive 1 and derive 2 are inherited from the same base class, And also this derive 3 is inherited from a base class, and derive 1 and derive 2. So in this we it will be a combination of more than two type of inheritance. So this type of scenarios is called as hybrid inheritance. So for this I have not created a class, so you can like try with your own for writing the class for this, right? So these are the type of inheritance, and this is the important question which you may get. So in this way you can reply, and you can also like tell him the example, right? So I hope this topic is clear to you about the type of inheritance. Now let's move to the next question, that why multiple inheritance is not supported in Java through classes. So this is the important question, because in Java we know that a multiple inheritance is not supported through class, although we can achieve multiple inheritance through like interface, but with class it is not possible. The first reason is like ambiguity around the diamond problem, because it will gives a ambiguity problem. So yeah, so let's like discuss how it will get a ambiguity problem. Yeah, so let's like consider there is a class A has a method foo, and a class B and C is derived from A. So this is class B, this is class C. It is derived from class A. Okay. And it has also a method foo with the same name. And also the C has a method foo with the same name as of the parent class. Now this is the parent class. So the B is a base class or a child class. And C is a child class, another child class with has the same method foo. Okay. Now class D derived from B and C using the multiple inheritance. And now let's say that class D is is derived from B and C using using a multiple inheritance. So in the class D, we will write extend B and C, right? So this is all of like example of multiple inheritance. So if we refer just foo, compiler will not be able to decide which foo it should invoke, right? So when we are creating the object of the class D, and if we're trying to invoke the foo method, then the compiler will not be sure that which class that which uh, method, that is foo, of which class he has to call or invoke, because the B and the C has the same method, right? So the compiler will get confused. So this is the all about ambiguity. So this is also called a diamond problem, because the structure on this inheritance scenario is similar to the four edge diamond, because it shows a diamond structure. So that's why it is called a diamond problem. And and let's say that if I will remove this A class also, then also the compiler will be confused, that if we create the object of this class D, and with this object if we try to call this foo method, then the compiler will get confused that the method from B or C class he had to call. So this is all about ambiguity, right? So for this reason, the multiple inheritance has been removed from the Java to make a Java a language, a simple language, right? So this is the first reason which I feel that it will give us a ambiguity diamond problem. Now the second reason is that the multiple inheritance does complicate the design and create the problem during casting, constructor chaining, and etc. So with the multiple inheritance, the Java is making its design a little bit complicate, because it can create the problem while casting and the constructor chaining. So it has omitted for the sake of simplicity. So for keeping the Java language simple, they have omitted this multiple inheritance. So also the Java avoids this ambiguity by supporting single inheritance with the interface. So this ambiguity can be removed by supporting with the inheritance, but with the class the multiple inheritance is not possible. But with the interface we can achieve the multiple inheritance in Java, right? So this is all about the reason of why multiple inheritance is not supported in Java. So this is surely one of the important questions come when they ask in the topic of inheritance. Now let's move to the another question, that what is a relation in Java. So they may directly ask about is a relation. So is a relation is same as the inheritance. So is a relation is like a inheritance, because uh, uh, because in the starting I have shown you an example in which I have created a father class, and then the child class has inherited the father class, right? So child is right. So here it's make a is a relation, so that is called inheritance. So it's implement using extend keyword. It is used for code reusability, right? So the inheritance and is a relationship is the same thing. So you have to not get confused if they ask is a relationship in Java. So you have to say is a relationship is inheritance in Java. So what is superclass and a subclass, right? So this may be so this name may be different, but a class from where a subclass inheritance feature is called as superclass, right? So superclass is also called as base class or a parent class. So it has a different name, that is superclass. In the same way, subclass. So subclass, a class that inherited all the member, that is field, method, and a nested class from other class is called as subclass. So subclass is also called as derived class, child class, or extended class. So this is the like another name for a child class. So super class is basically a parent class, and the subclass is basically a child class. So you have to not get confused when they ask superclass and subclass. So next question is, how is inheritance implemented and achieved in Java? So this can be achieved by using two keywords. First, extends, and second, implements. So they may ask that how you can achieve inheritance. So for that, you have to say that we can achieve by using two keywords, that is extend and implement. So extend is a keyword that is used for developing the inheritance between two classes or two interfaces, right? And implements keyword is used for developing the inheritance between a class and an interface. So let's say that I want to develop a inheritance between two class, then I will use extend keyword. Let's say I want to implement a inheritance property between two interfaces, then in that case I will use extend keyword. Let's say the third scenario, I want to use the inheritance between a class and a interface, then we have to go with implement, right? So if we want to go with the same classes, then we have to use extends, and if a class and interface, then we have to use implement. Now the next question is that which class in Java is super class of every other class? So in Java, object class is the super class of every other class, right? So you have to keep in mind that object is the only class that is the super class or the parent class of every class in Java. So can a class extend itself? So in Java, we cannot extend. So a class cannot extend itself, because a circular inheritance is not possible in Java, right? So let's say that a class hello extends hello. So this is not possible because circular inheritance is not possible in Java. So the next like tricky question can be, can a class extend more than one class? No, one class can extend only a single class. If a class will extend more than one class, then it will come into a multiple inheritance, which is not possible through a class, but it is possible through a interfaces, right? So the next tricky question they may ask, like, are constructor and instance initialization block inherit to subclass? Means constructor and instance initializations are coming to the subclass. So no, constructor and instance initialization block of a superclass cannot be inherited to the subclass, but they are executed while creating an object of a subclass. So you have to keep in mind that the constructor and the instance block are not getting inherited to the subclass in the inheritance, right? So the next question they may ask, like, are static member inherited to the subclass in Java? So you have to read the question very carefully, that are static members inherited to subclass in Java. So now we are talking about static members, not a instance members, right? So static blocks cannot be inherited to its subclass. A static method of a superclass is inherited to the subclass as a static member, and non-static member method is inherited as a non-static members only. So static block cannot be inherited, but a static method or a static like variable can be inherited to a subclass, but a static block cannot be inherited, right? So here you may feel some confusion, but you have to read it very carefully. That here I will say that there are like 3 points. First, static block. Second, static method. Third, third a non-static method or an instance method, right? So static block cannot be inherited, but a static method and an instance method can be inherited to a subclass. Now the next question is like, can we extend or inherit a final class? No, a class declared with a final keyword cannot be inherited. So there may be another question that how we can stop any class to be get inherited. So this can be achieved by making a class as a final, right? So if we mark that class as a final, then we are stopping that class to be get inherited to another class, right? So a class declared with a final keyword cannot be inherited. So the next tricky question is like, can a final method be overridden? So can you override a final method? So let's say that we have one method which is final in a parent class, and in a subclass I want to provide a new implementation of that method. Then is that possible? No, a final method cannot be overridden, right? Because it will not get inherited. So final method cannot be overridden. Now the next question comes, can we inherit private members of a base class in subclass? So no. So we cannot inherit the private members also. You can only inherit the public and the default and the protected, but you cannot inherit the private member of a base class into a subclass. So the next question is, what is the order of calling constructor in case of inheritance? So let's say that there is a like parent class, child class, and a child class, and all those classes has constructor. So what is the order of calling? In order of in case of inheritance, constructor are called from top to down. Means first the parent class constructor will be called, then the subclass, and then the subclass, right? Let's say that we have three classes. Let's say that we have two classes. First, the base class and the child class, and we have created the object of the child class. Let's say I have created the object of the child class. Still, the constructor of the child class will not get invoked. First, the constructor of the parent class will get called, and after that the constructor of the child class will get called. So this is the like order of calling the constructor in our inheritance. So this is like tricky question and important question also, right? Now let's move to the another question. Can we access both superclass and subclass members if we create an object of subclass? So here it's saying that if we create a object of a subclass, so with that object, can we access both the member of the parent class also and a member of subclass? Yes, this is like possible. We can access both the superclass and the subclass member with the object of the subclass. So let's move to the next question. Can we access subclass members if we create a object of superclass? So here it says if we create the object of superclass, so can we access the member of a subclass? So this is not possible. We can access only superclass member, but not the subclass member. If we create the object of a parent class, then with that object we can only access the member of a parent class, not the subclass, right? So this is also one important point. Now let's move to the next question, that what happens if both superclass and subclass have been filled with the same name? So here only subclass member are accessible if a object of the subclass is initiated, right? So what happens if the both superclass and the subclass has the same field, and we create the object of the subclass? Then only subclass member are accessible if a object of a subclass is initiated, right? Now So let's see some like program, and let's see that you can give the output of this or not. So you can pause this lecture, and like by yourself you can try to give the output of this. Okay. So will the code successfully compile? If yes, then what is the output? So we have a class A, and it has a member variable as x equals to 20, and we have another subclass with the name B. It is extending class A, and it has also x equals to 30. Now we have one test1 class. Now we have one like main method, and we have created the object of this child class B class, and with that we are accessing the member variable with the name x. And now we have created the object of class A, storing in the instance of A class, and we are accessing a dot x. Then what will the value we will get? And now we are creating the object of B class, but storing in the class A like instance variable. Now if you're accessing x, then what will be the output? So you can pause this like session, and you can try to answer. In the meanwhile, I will go to the compile like id, and I will try to execute this. And in the meantime, I believe you have got your answer. So let's try to hit a run, and let's try uh, to check. Okay, so this is my class. Now let's hit and check the output. So here you can see in the first it will if we are creating the child, then it will access the child x. Okay, so it is 30. Now we are creating the object of the parent class, so it will access the parent class 20. And now here we are storing this child object to the instance of the parent class, so it will call the child class like member variable. So sorry, the parent class member variable, so that's why it is 20, right? So this is the output of this program. Now let's move to the next question. Is that is interface inherited from object class? No, interface is not inherited from object class. As in the previous like question I have asked, that what is the super class of every other class in Java? So object was the super class of every other class in Java. But is interface is also inherited from the object class? So no, interface is not inherited from the object class. So now again you have to find the output of this. So we have class A1, so it has method M1, and here we have system.out.print M1 in class A. In the same way, we have child class B1, it has a method M1, and there is system out that M1 in B1 in B class. Now main method, we create the object of child class, and calling the method M1, we create the object of parent class and storing in the reference of parent only, and calling M1. Now we are creating the object of this child class, and then storing in the reference of parent class. So you can pause this, and you can try to attempt and try to find out the answer. And in the meanwhile, I will go to the Eclipse, and in the same way I will try to run this program, and let's see the output. So here you can see, when I'm creating the object of the child class and we are calling the method of, then it is calling the method of the child, that is M1 in B class. And now if I'm creating the object of parent class and storing in a parent reference, then and calling M1 method, then it will call to the parent class method M1 in class A. Now if I am creating the object of the child class and storing in a parent class reference variable and calling a method, not a member variable, then it will call the object of a child class, means it will call the method of a child class. So M1 in class B, right? So if we are storing in the parent class, if we are creating the object of a child class and storing to the parent reference, and with that reference if we are calling the method, then it will call the method of a child class. And in the same way, if we are calling to the member variable, then it will call to the parent class, right? So this is the difference you have to keep in mind. Now let's move to the next question. Is that yeah, so these are the some important point which you have to keep in mind. And yeah, so by so this point will make your like tricky questions in the interview of inheritance concept. So first point is that one subclass can extend only one superclass in Java, but it can implement multiple inheritance. So this is the first point, that one subclass can extend only one superclass in Java, right? So this is the first point. And the second point is that a private member of a superclass cannot be inherited in subclass like private field and private methods, right? So this point we have discussed earlier, that a private member of a superclass cannot be inherited to the child class. Third point is that default member can only be inherited in the same package subclass, not in another package. If we have a default member variable in a parent class, so it will get inherited into the subclass but into the same package, not to the other package. So you have to keep in this point in a mind. So the next point is that the constructor in Java is not inherited by the subclass. So as we have discussed already, that constructor cannot be inherited. So if a class implements interface or extend an abstract class, it need to override all the abstract method until it is not abstract. So this is basically the concept of abstraction or the abstraction or the abstract class, which we will discuss in our upcoming sessions, in the interview sessions, of the abstraction topic. So this you have to keep in mind, that if a class is implement interface or extend an abstract class, then it should override all the abstract method, or if it is not overriding all the abstract method of the of that class, then it should be marked as abstract. So the next point is, multiple inheritance are not supported in Java, but we can achieve this by using interface. One class can implement multiple interfaces, right? So the next point, in Java, class never extend the interface, rather it implement an interface. So in Java, a class never extend interface, it implement interface, right? So this is the another point. So one interface can extend another interface in Java, but a interface can extend another interface, right? But a class can never extend an interface. Class will only extend a class, and the interface will extend another interface. So this is another point, right? So these are the some important point which will make some like tricky questions, and you have to keep this point in your mind while giving the interview. Yeah, so this is all about the interview questions in the session of like core Java in the topic of inheritance. So I hope that this like session will be very useful for you. So now in the next session we will discuss the interview questions on the topic of like polymorphism, and next we will discuss in the topic of abstraction. So till then, bye and see you in the next session.